So I believe my contribution as an entrepreneur is I screwed up royally.
Right.
Many times.
I don't think there's a single entrepreneur out there who is not going to say that.
Exactly, right? And I think those pillars are what we continue to build on. And I think if I'm able to apply that at my professional gig now as well as my entrepreneurial gig, then everybody benefits.
Well, let's talk about IQ for a bit now. I know that you obviously are still on the board, and but the time spent at IQ is far less than what it was before. How does IQ leverage sort of interplay of data and design to create solutions that actually create solutions that connect human behaviors?
So. Really good question, Shaq. So we believe in human-centric design, right? Which is very simple to say that behind every problem or opportunity, there's a human behavior you need to unlock.
Yeah.
Right. And I think everybody here uses data to kind of, let's say, map consumer journeys, track traffic across websites. I mean, that data is really good. But to us at IQ, while we use structured data, it's mostly the unstructured data that's really useful, and something that I constantly tell the team. So the only area I'm involved at IQ right now is I still interview everyone who joins IQ.
Great.
Right, because to me that cultural fit is the most important. So I'm there at the interview, and every month we have onboarding for the new staff. I'm there for that.
Right.
And something I constantly talk about is the power of observation, and I define it as listening with your eyes, right? Leave your boardroom, leave your whiteboard and your marker, and go live the problem, right? If I were to give you an example, we were contracted the very early days by GSMA, the global trade body for telcos. Right. They fund innovation projects predominantly in developing markets. So we're like an innovation partner, where we had to work with them to map the agriculture value chain and then look at where is this value chain inefficient and what do we digitize.
Right.
So there were 6 of us who spent 9 weeks traveling from estate to estate, speaking to line managers, collection agents, factory supervisors, transport supervisors, the sorters, the sifters, the QA, all along the value chain to really understand what really is the problem. Where is the inefficiency? So we did this for tea and for fruit, two different sectors. So one common unlock that, I mean, the data didn't show it. The data points you in a certain direction, right? But that if you really want to be human-centric, you have to live, feel, breathe the problem.
Understand the behavior.
So for example, the data told us that the factory was paying out a lot more money upfront to the tea smallholders who are growers, compared to when they received the harvest.
Right.
But the real problem was that the smallholder was taking that money out as collateral because he didn't have money to prepare the harvest.
Right.
Which led to a solution around a mobile wallet, which essentially is around you look at your previous crops, you look at your previous value, and about 80% of it, it's like a factoring solution, about 80% of. So I mean, that solution wouldn't come if you only look at data.
Right.
The solution comes, data points. So we do use data, we do use machine learning, we do use algorithms. Something I continue to offend the chief data scientist at IQ. I said, look, you're actually useless, right? Because you're a great mathematician. You'll take the data, you'll run beautiful queries, very structured algorithms, but I might have a guy who will give me far more insight on an Excel sheet because he knows the consumer and knows the market. But the magic happens when I marry a data scientist with a business expert. That's when the magic happens, right? So I believe that that combination is what works for us at IQ, and whoever I work with right now, I advise a few companies on their digital transformation. I said, look, have a good data science and a good data engineering team, but it's nothing without a business expert.
But does that marriage actually work? As in terms of like, more often than not, is it like a case of opposites attract sort of thing? Because both are really poles apart in terms of their thinking.
Yeah.
They have to find this, common ground, which is not necessarily easy.
Not at all. So, which is why I think, to make that happen, the culture has to be right.
That's right.
Right. And I think if you really look at digital transformation in Sri Lankan companies, we invest in a lot of technology without really understanding why we're investing in it. So literally there's a lot of technology debt on our balance sheets. We have multiple systems that don't even talk to each other because we're trying to play catch up.
Right.
We're not really looking at, and then we talk about digital transformation, forgetting that it's actually business transformation first. So have we really looked at business transformation? Simple example, if someone's running a kade, right, and they want to run e-commerce, and they start fulfilling e-commerce orders out of the same inventory in the kade, what's going to happen? You need to separate your inventory for your e-commerce orders, because otherwise you won't know what you won't be able to match demand and supply from two different sources, right? So I think for two minds to meet, the culture in organizations around digital transformation has to change, and I think we can get into that more. But to me, it's predominantly around stop playing catch up.
Right.
And collecting technology and building a technology stack instead of really understanding what you're going to unlock.
So Irfan, looking at what you obviously spoken about, especially with the work that's been done at IQ and also the work at MAS at FutureWorks, how do you cultivate environments within your team? Because now, for example, just a few minutes ago, you just mentioned the fact that go live your problem, right? Which is a very, very bold way of actually thinking. And there are so many attributes to that, because you come up with a more cleaner solution and more definite solution than sitting behind an Excel sheet or a boardroom and just deciding and predicting this is what the problem is. How do you cultivate your teams to basically go and push creativity, encourage it, risk-taking and innovation? These are all different clusters, Irfan.
Yeah.
But there has to be, in terms of it to work, they all need to have that point where they merge.
Yeah.
How do you push your teams to do that?
So innovation and transformation can't be achieved without proper facilitation. Even for me in the early days, when we set up innovation teams, one of the conversations is, okay, what's the KPI for an innovation team, right? And if you give them sales or market share KPIs, it's really not going to work, right? Because the process of transformation, innovation transformation is very iterative. You really don't know what you're committing to. You are validating it as you go on a certain journey. So what leadership in organizations really need to think about is what I call extreme facilitation. How do you separate your day-to-day business from your need to transform and create value? If you're identifying an opportunity, that means it's a potential opportunity.
Right.
The process of validating that, building that, revalidating that, testing it, and then building a business model on top of it takes time, is trial and error. So it needs a different process of facilitation. It needs a different mindset. It needs to be measured differently. For example, how many ideas do you have in your pipeline? What is the rate of validation? How many of them are converting to a business case? How many business cases are then going into prototyping and, let's say, testing and test marketing? And then what's the success rate of that? It could still lead to a revenue and market share KPI, but the journey is very, very different. So we expect results from innovation and transformation without really thinking about how we're going to facilitate it. We think as long as we facilitate it like any of our other departments or any of our other functions, it's going to work. it won't.
It won't. It won't. And this is something that obviously I had a conversation with most of the other thought leaders on the show, is the fact that in hindsight, the pandemic actually helped the technological advancements in Sri Lanka, not necessarily in Sri Lanka, around the world.
Globally,
Because as far as Sri Lanka was concerned, obviously we were sitting on legacy systems also for a very, very long time. We were very happy where we were. We didn't necessarily take that step forward in terms of, digitalization, digital transformation, because the world was happy, or rather we were happy with the world. But when we were actually pushed in a corner when COVID struck and the pandemic struck, that's where it sort of catapulted the whole thing. Now, do you see that sort of boost that happened at that point slowing down, or have people gone back into their transformation process, or do you see corporates still trying to actually press the accelerator moving forward?
I don't think it's slowing down. I think there is more reality starting to set in.
Right.
And I think obviously there's a lot more maturity that's coming in. I think, let's say 4 to 5 years ago, digital transformation for most companies was still largely new. It was an initiative or two. It wasn't probably an enterprise-wide initiative that they were driving. I think if at all, the appetite is more. But what's really happening is two things. The results of those initial efforts are coming in, so there's a check and adjust that's probably happening.
Right.
And also teams, leadership and teams have reached a certain enhanced level of maturity, which is now demanding for more. So I think it's a good place to be.
How do you see Sri Lanka contributing to the global innovation landscape over the next decade or so?
I think Sri Lanka can contribute immensely. So I think I was just looking at the Global Innovation Index, and two things that really stuck out to me were the innovation input and the innovation output. Our innovation output is not great. I don't remember the ranking, but our innovation input is not great. But corresponding to, so input is infrastructure, education, support, knowledge, universities, all of that. Not bad, but not great. But our output in correlation to the input is significant.
Okay.
I mean, wherever you go today, and even particularly in projects that I'm involved in, our engineering technology talent is world class.
Right.
Better than our neighbors in most instances.
Right.
What we need work on is more the attitude, the mindset, the ability to communicate, the ability to package an idea, professionalism, project management. Those are the areas that I think that's holding us back. But in terms of pure, raw engineering talent, we're world class.
I think I was actually having this conversation with somebody else earlier on, is the fact that we, like you said, we have world class engineers sitting here, unfortunately helping other countries.
Yeah.
Assisting other countries to actually go ahead much further than we are, because what they are helping other countries do, we as a country are not allowed to do.
Yeah.
Because there are too many restrictions. Things are curbed. You can't do this, you can't do that.
Yeah,
technological advances. Now, what do you think in terms of, obviously with those coming into play, what do you think the country should actually do in terms of strengthening the position that Sri Lanka could actually be in terms of innovation?
I mean, so we need at any given time about 70 to 80,000 software engineers alone, right? But I don't think we're putting out more than 11,000 at any
Really?
right? Capacity availability is 11 to 14,000 at any given time. So if you go back to that whole innovate, I think we need to really improve the inputs. We need to create more breeding grounds, more universities, more programs to drive, to generate more talent. The other thing I wanted to talk about, Shaq, is if you really look at the future of engineering, it's not the hard side of engineering. The sense, it's not going to boil down to how well you can code, because a GPT engine is going to take care of that for you.
Yeah.
Right? It's the softer side of engineering. It's going to boil down to how well you can contextualize.
Right.
Right? So how, as an engineer or as a coder, how well do I understand the consumer problem, the market problem? Because almost all code is probably going to generate itself.
Yeah.
But what's going to be missing is the logic and the logic's not going to come if you don't have empathy or you're not empathetic enough, right? So a common problem I observe, and I spend a lot of time mentoring students from a few universities, is extremely high IQ, absolutely no EQ. Very transactional in their intelligence. So if you continue to be transactional in your intelligence and you can't contextualize what you're working on and why you're working on it, then we have a problem. So we need to go back to this whole innovation input to say, don't just train technical software engineers. Train human engineers who understand empathy, context, can communicate, have an appreciation for things beyond technology, maybe
Which
arts.
is something AI can't give you.
AI can't give you, right? Just an appreciation for the arts and humanity, for example, makes them better engineers.
Irfan, it's been, as always, fascinating to pick your brains, to know exactly where you are in terms of innovation, where you are with FutureWorks, where you are with IQ. Finally, what advice would you give? I mean, you harped on it just a bit before we got into the next question itself, but what advice would you actually give young entrepreneurs navigating complexities of technology, wanting to be innovators, wanting to actually push the needle, but not knowing how to get about things, because not all of us are lucky to actually be at the right place at the right time. And like we said, there are fabulous individuals out there, and you know, the individuals, the young entrepreneurs coming out today are just mind-blowing in Sri Lanka, but they just haven't got to be in the right place in the right time.
Yeah. So I think everyone can have a good idea.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a dime a dozen. There's no shortage of good ideas. And I think as entrepreneurs, what you need to do, as an entrepreneur, what you need to do is leave the technology aside. I think we rush to technology. I mean, I've been pitched ideas where I've been pitched a project, here's my idea, this is what I built, right? But when I ask questions around, okay, so what's your value proposition? How do you know that this is a problem? How do you validate it? How did you test it? Do you have market feedback? Right? I rarely get an answer. But there's a lot of time and money invested in perhaps even building
The tech. Right.
Right? So I think if you're serious about an idea, firstly, you believe it's a good idea because it's yours. How do you really know it's a good idea? Spend time with it. Take that iterative process. Break it down. What problem am I solving? Why am I solving it better than anyone else? And if I solve it, what's the value proposition going to look like, right? And then go to market and validate that. We have this innate fear around sharing ideas. Someone's going to steal my idea.
Yeah.
I think that's old hat, right?
Right.
You need to network with your idea, right? If it's going to put one pressure on you to do it faster, but it's the validation it's going to give you is something that you will never achieve just by probably sketching it out yourself or doing a little bit of internet research, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. At MAS, one of the industries we're going into is e-sport, right? Huge industry on the surface of it. We wanted to go in. 200 million plus gamers in the US. So the fantastic pitch, right? Let's get into esport, 200 million gamers, multiple titles and publishers. There is a business case for it, and here's what we want to do.
It automatically validates itself.
It validates itself.
Yeah.
6 months down the line, we realized, yes. And the rationale that we had at that time is, it's probably going to be as big as the NBA or the NFL or the NHL.
Right.
Right? But now, we still believe in the opportunity. But now we've realized there is a fundamental difference that we didn't see. The NBA, the NFL, the NHL took 75 years to get to where they are.
Right.
And there's a reason they took 75 years. They built a sport, they built a following, then the following converted from the sport to the athlete, from the athlete to the team, from the team to the league, right? And then there's an entire ecosystem that took time to build up. Esport right now is huge following, but it's only a media channel right now. It's not a business, right? So realizations like that are important.
And they take
validations.
time also.
And they take time also.
Right.
Right? So imagine if you just rushed into technology, build platforms, launch products, spend millions of rupees or dollars, and try to pursue that, won't work. So go slow to go fast.
Interesting, very interesting. Irfan, thank you so much for
Hey,
coming
my
on the
pleasure.
show.
My
It's
pleasure.
been an absolute pleasure. And obviously, speaking to Irfan, it's a great to actually talk to him, as a matter of fact, because there's so many things that he's one of those individuals who actually sees it from the other side of it. That's so brilliant in speaking to him. It's been great, obviously, as always, having a chat with Irfan on the show. And this is Meet the Tech Titans, where we bring in influential voices like Irfan in the tech world who've actually made an impact in the tech world, to share some insights with individuals out there who are watching, young, budding entrepreneurs who want to get into innovation, who want to get into entrepreneurship, different paths as far as digital transformation is concerned. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. We've got more great series coming up with fantastic voices, like I said, impactful voices in the technological industry in Sri Lanka. This is Meet the Tech Titans, which brought to you by Hutch, and we shall see you in the next podcast series.